everyone, and welcome to Business Boutique. I'm Christy, Wright, and today we are talking about being authentic. Now, I'll tell you guys, this is something that I think is so important in life, in business, for you to be comfortable in your own skin, for you to be confident, but sometimes it's hard. I'll tell you about an experience I had a couple years ago where I was asked to write an article for a certain magazine. This is a professional publication. It had intellectuals and academics and kind of a conservative, elite type of audience. So you can imagine my surprise that they wanted me to write an article for them, but they wanted a long form article, 2,000 to 3,000 words, all about starting a business. So I did. I submitted it through our publicity department, and I was a little surprised when they came back with not only feedback, but they were shocked at the tone of my writing. They said, "I can't believe she's so chatty." And I was like, "Really? Have you heard me speak or write or teach? Because that's actually my entire brand." I thought, if you don't want chatty, then you probably don't want me. Now, y'all, I'm not saying that you shouldn't adapt your style depending on your audience or depending on who you're around or what environment you're in. Sure, we should all learn and grow and try to meet people where they are. For example, when I speak at Entree Leadership, I use different stories, different examples, and take a little bit of a different tone with that audience than I do at Business Boutique. At Business Boutique, it's all women, we're all best friends. It's just a different type of vibe. But in this example, this publication obviously wanted me to be something that I wasn't. They wanted me to write like an academic, like an intellectual at this elite level with big, fancy words. And that's not how I write. That's not how I talk. That's not how I connect with people. So what they wanted was for me to be something that I'm not. Now, I'll tell you, we ended up getting to a good place where they felt like, okay, this is an article that we can put out that's still true to Christy's voice, but still meets our standards. But it was really eye-opening to me to realize how important it is to not only be authentic, but be confident in your authenticity, even when life and other people try to push you around or tell you how to be something that you're not. And if we're not careful, they will do exactly that. That's why today I want to give you 4 ways to practice authenticity in your life, to actually make sure you're not only being authentic, but staying authentic when other people try to push you around or change you or tell you you should be something else. So let's go through these 4 ways that you can be authentic. The first one is simply to be vulnerable. Now, this is not my idea. Brené Brown has really introduced this idea of vulnerability years ago with her book and her TED Talk all about daring greatly. It's a brilliant concept that as we step out in vulnerability, as we open ourselves up, not just to pain, but also to love, we're able to have deeper connections and even a deeper sense of confidence in who we really are. But you know what? Vulnerability is key to authenticity. It's hard. As an Enneagram 8, this is even harder for me. So often I want to put up this tough exterior. I've got it all together. I'm fine. But vulnerability is really key to living your truest self. Let me give you an example from many, many years ago when my husband and I were dating. It was our first Christmas together as a dating couple. And we had different expectations of how that holiday was going to go. I had the expectation that we would spend Christmas together. He had the expectation that he would go back home to Alabama and spend it with his family. He thought, we're just dating. We're not married. I should be with my family. And I thought, we're dating. We should obviously spend this holiday together. And obviously I lived in Nashville, so my family was here anyway and didn't think about him having to travel. Well, after a lot of back and forth and a lot of hurt feelings and miscommunications and trying to understand why did he think that this was such a big deal that I wanted him to be in Nashville, and why did I think that he should be in Nashville, and all this back and forth, finally, I decided to be vulnerable. I decided to share with him why it was so important to me that we spent this holiday together. I said, you know what, Matt? It's really not about Christmas. It's really not about celebrating the holiday or you being here. I said, it's about feeling like I'm a priority in your life. Because when you tell me that you're going to go to Alabama and not be here for the entire Christmas holiday, and I'm your girlfriend and we're serious, it makes me feel like I'm not important. And that hurts my feelings because you're really important to me. That moment was a breakthrough in our conversation. It was really a breakthrough even in our relationship where I realized I can be vulnerable with you, with my heart, with my true feelings, with the root of what's really going on. And then what's so awesome is he could meet me there. Instead of arguing at the surface level about who would be where on Christmas, he said, "You're so important to me. You are absolutely a priority in my life. In fact, this may be the last Christmas that I spend with my family because I'll probably spend the rest of them with you. That's why I want to go home for Christmas. But it doesn't mean you're not a priority. You're very important to me." That conversation went that direction simply because I was willing to be vulnerable, simply because I was willing to share with him my true feelings, what I was scared about, where I was hurt, what was really going on. So being vulnerable is key to being authentic, to living your truest self and being honest with the people around you. So the first step to being authentic is simply to be vulnerable. All right, now the second way to be authentic is to tell the truth. Now let's talk about this, because I'll tell you, I have seen two extremes of people, and I have certainly fallen in both of these extremes in my own life. On the one hand, we only want to share the good. So someone asks you how you're doing, and you say, "Oh, fine, I'm doing great," when you're not doing fine. You're having a hard time, your kids were up late, your husband's been out of town, you're sick, you're struggling, and you're not fine at all. You're not good, you're not fine. But just to make things easier and keep things at the surface level, you say, "I'm fine, things are great, how are you?" And it's all surface level. It's not real. It's not authentic. It's not true. So tell the truth even when things aren't good. Tell the truth even when things are hard. Tell the truth even when you're struggling. You know, sometimes I'll come into the office and my coworkers will ask me, "Hey, how's it going? How was your weekend?" And if it wasn't great, I'll say, "Well, you want the honest answer?" And usually, of course, they'll say yes. I'm like, "It was hard. I had the kids by myself," or, I got sick, or we had a setback and a problem at the house. Something went wrong with the plumbing and we had to have a handyman come over. List off the things that could go wrong in a given day. But you can be honest. You can be honest when things aren't good. Now, I want to take this a step further and talk about the other extreme. So, of course, I want you to not only talk about the good, keep things at surface level, definitely feel free to talk about the bad, the struggles, the hard times. However, let's talk about the other extreme as well, because one of the things that I have seen people do, especially women, and I have done this myself, we not only want to hide the bad, but sometimes we swing so far to the other extreme that we only talk about the bad. Now, that's one piece of telling the truth. When things are hard, when you're struggling, share that. Don't feel like you always have to say fine and good and keep things at the surface level. Now, there's another trend that I have seen people do, especially women, and I have done this myself time and time again. Another piece of telling the truth means owning when things are good, actually acknowledging when you're doing well, when you've accomplished something, when you're proud of something, when you've worked hard for something. Let me give you an example, okay? Here's a scenario. Let's say that you decide to cook dinner for some family and friends that are in town and they're coming over for a dinner party. And they're sitting around the dinner table and everyone is just loving the meal that you cooked. And they say, "Oh my gosh, this meal is delicious. It is so good. You are such a good cook." And you respond, "Oh, it was nothing. It took 2 seconds. I just threw it together, just a sprinkle and a dash, no big deal." No, it didn't. You have been slaving over that stove for 9 hours. It took 47 ingredients from a Pioneer Woman recipe that is not easy, that got to that meal that was so good. So when you get a compliment about your meal or your dress or your project or your business or your work or how clean your house is or how cute it's decorated or how well-behaved your children are, do not dismiss that compliment. Do not say, "Oh, this old thing. Oh, this old thing I've had in the closet. Oh, the house. Oh, I just threw it together. Oh, this meal, it took no time." When you dismiss compliments, you're not only dismissing your own sense of confidence in that moment, you're also dismissing the truth. You know that you worked hard on that house. You worked hard on raising those children. You worked hard on that meal, and you bought that dress because it does look good, dang it. You wouldn't have bought it if it didn't. You feel great in it. So instead of always rejecting compliments, downplaying compliments, dismissing the kind things that people are saying, instead, I want you to bite your tongue and say 2 words. Thank you. Thank you. This meal is delicious. Thank you. Wow, you look amazing in that dress. Thank you. Your children are so well behaved. Thank you. That's all you're allowed to say. You're allowed to agree with them. When you say thank you, you are accepting the gift of their compliment and you are agreeing at the truth in that statement. Part of being authentic doesn't just mean you're sharing the bad, airing your dirty laundry, telling people when you're having a hard time. It also means you're telling people when you're having a great time, when you did a good job, when you did a good thing, you accomplished something hard and it paid off. So I want you to share both. I want you to share the good when things are good. I want you to share the bad when things are bad. And when you put those together and you tell the truth in your life, you are actually being authentic. Okay, so the first way to be authentic is to be vulnerable. The second way is to tell the truth, the whole truth, all the time. The third way to be authentic is to know your values. Now, this sounds really simple, but I'll tell you guys, so often we get caught up in our roles and our responsibilities. We identify with these roles that we play. So you ask someone, well, what do you do? And they're like, oh, I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a sister, I'm a friend, I'm a leader, I'm a project manager, a designer. We have all these roles that we really attribute to our identity. But below that, there are values that make you who you are, things you believe, things you feel, things that are important to you and things that aren't. And what's interesting is if we're not careful, we will always operate at the surface level of our roles. We're fulfilling tasks for the people in our lives. We're running errands. We're completing jobs done. We're getting things together. We're cleaning, organizing, buying, always just operating the business of our life at the surface level to fill all the roles and responsibilities that we have. But we miss that there's a deeper layer in our mind, in our heart of values, which represent things that we care about. And living from those values, not only knowing what they are, but living from them is key to being authentic. Because I'll tell you, I have spoken on life balance for years. And it's not so much about the time that we have or the schedule that we keep or even the different jobs that we do. It's more about whether or not we live from our values. So we say things like this: I love to work out, but I don't ever have time to. I value spending time with my kids and playing and being active and being outdoors. But gosh, by the time I get home from work, I don't have any energy to. Or man, I would love to go on a date with my husband. I would love to go on a vacation with my husband. But man, we haven't been on a vacation in 6 years. Friends, I want to tell you, when you don't spend your life and your time on things that are important to you, you're going to be stressed and anxious and exhausted because there's this inconsistency in your life between what you care about, what you value, and what your life really reflects, what you actually spend your time on. So a key to living authentically is to close this gap, to live from your values, to identify what is important to you, and then spend time on those things. So often we think, well, I've got too many things going on. I'm just too busy. That might be true, but it might not. It's interesting. It's often not too many things going on that overwhelms us. It's the wrong things. We're spending our time and our lives on the wrong things. We don't feel authentic. We don't feel true to ourselves. We don't even feel like ourselves because we're so busy operating at the surface trying to keep up with everyone else's demands of us. Instead, dig deep. Look at this lower layer in your life, in your heart, in your mind. What's important to you? What do you care about? What makes you light up? What makes you come alive? What gives you joy and energy? What gets you excited and fired up? It's probably not laundry. It's probably not errands. And some of those things still have to be done. I understand that. But if you don't integrate your values into your life, you will not only be exhausted and frustrated and anxious and stressed and resentful, you won't be living authentically. So the third way to being authentic is to live from your values. But here's the good news. When you start to do this, when you start to close the gap between the things you care about and the things that you actually spend time on, then what's awesome is you can be crazy busy, but you feel that sense of balance. You feel like you're living authentically because you're no longer doing everything. You're no longer doing the wrong things. You're doing the right things for you. So identify your values and then take it a step further and actually live from them. When you live from your values, you will be living authentically. All right, now let's go on to number 4 and our last one. And this one is a fun one to talk about. It might make people a little uncomfortable. That's fine. Here's the deal. The fourth way to living authentically is to love yourself. Love yourself. I'm pausing for effect on purpose, okay? This is hard. I'll tell you, I had a Bernese Mountain Dog for 11 and a half years. He was a companion dog, this awesome dog. And there's such an example from this of an interaction between my dad and my dog that has stuck with me forever. This was years ago when my dad met Jackson for the first time. And he was just playing with him and wrestling and, getting to know him in the yard after me having him for about a year. And I'd finally brought him over to my dad's house so he could meet him. And my dad said something so amazing that stuck out to me. My dad looked at me and he said, "Wow, you can tell that dog really knows he's loved." Isn't that interesting? He didn't say that dog is so loving. He said that dog knows he's loved. Because the truth is, we can't offer something we don't have, and we can't lead others where we are not. If you want to love people in your life, sister, you better love yourself first. And often, the opposite is also true. The reason we're so hard on people in our lives is because in our mind, we have this ongoing narrative where we are so hard on ourselves. It's amazing how we will spend our entire day, from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to sleep, beating ourselves up about how we look, how we dress, how we keep our house, how we parent our kids, how we failed over here and failed over there, and she's better and she's cuter and I'm not enough, all day, every day, and it's exhausting. That narrative is mean. It's exhausting and it's heavy. And I want you to know that that is not what God says about you, and that is certainly not the life that God has called you to live. I love how the Bible says, love your neighbor as yourself. The implication there is that you actually love yourself. So you've got to love yourself. You can't love others if you don't first love yourself, that you value yourself. I love how Brené Brown says, talk to yourself like you would someone you love. Love yourself. If you want to be authentic, you need to love the person that you live with all day, every day. That person that looks back at you in the mirror, that person that you are going to spend your life with more than anyone else. The person you're going to spend more time with than anyone else. The person that makes everything in your life possible. Love her. Take care of her. Stop being so mean to her. Change the narrative. Change the voices in your head. Change the things you say about yourself and to yourself and believe about yourself. Instead, I will give you a really practical tip here. If you struggle with self-doubt and a lack of confidence, and you struggle with these thoughts and these narratives, which we all do, I just want to encourage you to go to your Bible, because God has some amazing things to say about you. He said he delights over you with singing. He knit you together in your mother's womb. He will move heaven and earth for you, that he chose you, that he loves you, that he gave you gifts, that he sent his son to die for you. That's what God says about you. He will leave the 99 for you. You are precious in his sight. You are valuable in his sight. I want you to take those thoughts and replace what you have in your mind with those thoughts. And I promise you, it's a lot easier to love others when you not only love yourself, but you realize how loved you already are. All right, y'all, let's do a quick recap of 4 ways that you can be authentic. Number 1, be vulnerable. Share your true feelings. Number 2, tell the truth, the good, the bad, and everything in between. Number 3, know your values and live from them. And number 4, love yourself. If you do this, you will be on your way to living a much more authentic life. Thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And now you can check out this next video.